Chase is gonna leave me now by myself.
Good to see what she looked like. Is that it's showing you different people. Why did they do with the volume? What does that middle one show you? I don't know. It keeps popping up and going down. Did you click on what's this more options? They all have their mic.
Mr. Chairman, it's 5:31 that I have, and it looks like we have all the members. We did hear from Ms. Reyes, and she's not going to be able to join us this evening. So if you'd like to get started.
Thanks, Justin. Mr. Howalt. Welcome, everybody, to this, the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board meeting. It is 5:31 on Tuesday the 21st, or excuse me, Tuesday the 12th. I'm going to read a quick little note, and then we'll get started. So due to Governor Lujan Grisham's order limiting the number of attendees to gatherings, the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board meeting will not be open to the general public. The public is invited to view the meeting on Suddenlink Channel 10 or at the city's website, www.cityofclovis.org, and Facebook at City of Clovis, New Mexico, the city government section. And to share and to call in questions that they might have to 575-763-9200, which and those questions will be shared to the board. At this time, we are going to call the meeting to order. And we're going to start with roll call. Will the clerk please call roll?
Thomas Martin.
Here.
Michaela Gatewood.
Here.
Gail Tarson.
Here.
Freddie Bryant.
Here.
Commissioner Garza.
Here.
And Jess Reyes is unavailable. Okay.
So we are going to approve the minutes from April 2nd. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
Thomas, I have no corrections, but I would motion to approve.
All right, so Ms. Tarson has the first motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And Michaela Gatewood seconds that motion. And now all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Or thumbs up? Does that work? And all opposed, same sign. So it looks like the motion carried. Is this working, Ms. Reyes, Vicky?
You're good.
All right, thank you. So now on to the review of the applications for lodger's tax. So we will go in the order they were submitted. First up is Smoke on the Water. Duffy, if you want to unmute yourself, if you're out there.
I'm out here. I give you a thumbs up.
Right on. Thanks, Duffy.
I appreciate you all taking the time to review our application for Smoke on the Water. That is the annual 4th of July celebration that happens at Green Acres Park every year. Even last year, even in 2020, it being a strange year, we were able to pull that together with much help from the city. The event's been around for decades. Our group has been involved with it. This will be our 18th year serving as organizers for Smoke on the Water. The event itself draws thousands of people out to Green Acres Park, and in most years draws thousands of people out to Green Acres Park for a day of fun, family fun, events, activities, and of course the main event after dark is the 4th of July fireworks to celebrate Independence Day. We have a long-standing partnership with the city on the event. City has worked with us by providing unbelievable support between Parks and Rec Department, police, fire, and so on and so on. With overtime hours, holiday hours, and things of that nature, the city has been a tremendous partner with us, as has the Chamber of Commerce over the years. We promote Smoke on the Water mostly with a pretty robust radio campaign that was addressed in a proposal that was attached to the application for your review. The campaign stretches out roughly in a 100-mile radius from Clovis to encourage and invite residents from satellite towns within that area to come in, many of which who don't have their own fireworks display, to come in and enjoy time in Clovis and to enjoy the fireworks and hopefully enjoy a meal while they're here as well. Includes a major push on the radio. It does include social media integration. It does include a digital component as well, where we're again trying to drive folks into Clovis to enjoy our display. Last year's event, of course, just as a quick recap, was a little different than every year prior to that I've been involved with. Of course, due to COVID, we weren't able to have the event proper. We were able to have fireworks due to some last minute shuffling and some help with folks at the city. We were able to put together a fireworks display. However, we weren't able to host the actual event in the park due to the health order that was in place at the time that didn't allow for mass gatherings. That being said, we didn't use the allotment that was afforded us last year, courtesy of the Lodgers Tax Board, to its full capacity. We did use it to get information out about what was going on with the event leading up to it, and there were a lot of changes, kind of fast and furious in that. So this year, we're hoping, as is everybody, I believe, that we're back to normal, that everything is back to normal, certainly by July 4th. We're asking the Lodgers Tax to consider a $15,000 offset of the promotional cost. The total event comes to about $43,000 every year when you include the promotional cost, the fireworks, and other logistics of the event. I stand for any questions. Well, I sit for any questions.
Thank you, Duffy. And thanks for clarifying on, I saw on your, in the packet, I'm glad you mentioned the Facebook and the digital. I know you've got a good presence there, and it's so, it's easier to share. So thanks for clarifying there. The only question that I had was, and you mentioned it, actually I have two things. On the overall project, you list live music, games, fun. Are we planning that this year? And then again, adjust just like we did last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, 100%. I believe that in conversations with city folks, Mr. Holwalt, Ms. Burrows, and some others within the city last year, we all felt, even as of July last year, that the town was just absolutely ready for an event like Smoke on the Water, ready for an event where they could get out and not just celebrate America, but celebrate the companionship and the sense of community. And so I stand by that 100%. I believe by July of this year, everybody's going to be more than ready for that. So we're planning 100% that it's going to be the traditional event that we've put on for almost 2 decades. And yeah, as we get closer, if the governor still has us under a health order, we will adjust as we need to.
Thank you. And then last thing, and you mentioned it as well, was, I guess it's sort of a question for Mr. Holwalder, Ms. Melanson, but do we carry over the unused funds that were not used for last year's? What do we want to do there?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did actually carry over the unused funds from last year. So the total requested amount that was reimbursed was $6,906.70. And so we carried over $8,093.30. So if you actually award the full amount from a budgetary standpoint, we'll just need to make an adjustment for the $6,900 roughly that was spent last year. And then we'll have the remaining a little bit over $8,000 remaining from last year that we carried over. So if you also choose to award that full amount, then we've got it accounted for.
Great. Thank you for checking into that. Anyone else from the advisory board that has any questions?
This is Gail, and I just want to clarify because I'm a little slow. So if we're using the carryover, are we approving the 15,000 plus the carryover? Or, okay, so the carryover is going to be out of the 15,000. Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Clarification.
From an organizational standpoint, 15,000 is what we're asking for. We're not asking for 21 work plus.
Good question, Gail. Anyone else?
Thomas, I didn't have any questions myself.
Thank you, Michaela.
Yeah, no question for me.
Thanks, Freddie. Duffy, thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, how does it work from here on a Google Meet? Do I stay on with everybody, or do I tender my resignation and bid adieu?
I think you can bid adieu, and then if you would like, you're more than welcome to stay. But we'll continue to review the applications, and then we'll do the funding at the end. But I think we're good. I mean, it is nice that you've done this for 18 years. We've heard of you, and we know what you do. And yeah, it's a good one. So.
Well, thank you again to the board for considering my application. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Duffy. All right, well, let's move on to the second application. It is from the Chamber of Commerce. Shad Mayfield welcome billboards. Is Jerry on, or is the Chamber going to represent this one?
Jerry is on. We're just waiting for him to find that unmute button, huh, Jerry?
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. We're on now.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Thomas. Good evening. I'm on the team to celebrate Shad Mayfield. He's our 2020 Professional Rodeo Cowboy Association World Champion calf roper. He just turned 20 years old in November, and been following him and grew up with his parents and from a rodeo family, and from watching him to the High Plains rodeos and grown up to, he made the national finals last year plus this year. And he went to the American at the AT&T Stadium, won over $600,000, and San Antonio, and led the year all year long, and then went in the national finals with nearly $90,000 in the lead. And as it turned out, he had the number one back number, which was very hard to get because it was the most money won for the whole season. So with that being said, he come out the world champion calf roper. It wasn't the finals that he was expecting, but he did win 40,000 and he got along pretty dang good. And they was all trying to catch him. They had everything to do to get in there, and they was gaining on him, but they didn't get him. So as a team to celebrate that, we was considering a welcome, something when people come in from Texas, all the traffic comes through Clovis, and consider a couple of billboards and good ones to leave up, or in for 2 years we come to $18,361, or consider one maybe, but there's a lot of traffic comes in from Texas on the east side. Shad is the first calf roper since Glenn Franklin, since 1968. Glenn from House, New Mexico, won 3 world champions, and the first world champion in 72 years since Homer Pettigrew from Grady, New Mexico, won his 7th bulldog and steer wrestling title. So it's been a long, long time since we've had a world champion in Curry County. And I can't emphasize how big of a deal this is. You know, he went all year long and through everything to win a world champion with all the COVID and everything's going on, and he prevailed. So with that being said, do we have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Fulgham. I'm looking through my notes. If anybody has any questions from the board, feel free to ask.
Well, this is Gail. One of the questions I had is, so I know that the intention of the billboards would be to draw people in for events such as the Pioneer Days Rodeo, the county fair. So would the billboards, that's what they would be, is just promoting those events? Or what else is the draw? Like, what else is going to bring people in for the?
It's mainly for the city, besides when we have our 50th Pioneers Day Rodeo, but to acknowledge, Shad, that we had at the city of Clovis has a world champion calf roper. And I've seen billboards, and Taos Muncie when Corona, when he was world champion saddle bronc rider, had a big sign out there, and Casey Field when he come in, they had a big billboard and fire engines and stuff, and we would like to just acknowledge and have it up for a couple years and let people know that we have a world champion calf roper here. Besides, since it's a western town, and when things open up again, and maybe our horse sales coming back, and our Pioneer Days Rodeo coming back, and all the horse events coming through here, and just to acknowledge Shad.
So Gail, what we had talked about is on the billboard referring back to the Welcome Center and the Visitor Center, so that people are traveling through, then they could come here and get information and maybe stay. Obviously, as COVID wraps up, it'll affect it a little bit, but we're basically using his image to promote the community.
Okay, so that makes sense, Chase. So he's our celebrity that we're going to use just to draw us into Clovis in general for any and every activity that we have going on here. So I get it, celebrity representation. Okay, thank you. And I do think this is wonderful. What a way to put us on the map.
And Mr. Chairman, this is City Manager Justin Howalt, and I always get to be the one that asks some tough questions, and I appreciate Gail's question. And if y'all could, once again, the use of lodgers tax funds is to draw tourists from outside of our community into our community. And I need to be sure that we're expending those dollars per the statutes. And so, Chase, you alluded to it a little bit of what else is potentially going to be on that billboard, because just a billboard alone, without either promoting an event or an attraction for somebody to come to the city of Clovis, yeah, we are. And don't get me wrong, we're certainly proud of Shad, and the city of Clovis has recognized Shad, key of the city, and just bringing them on to the city commission meetings. But there's got to be that tourism element tied to it. And so, and then the other issue that I see here is that the request is for a 2-year period. We budget on a fiscal year, and so we don't carry funds over from one year to another year and budget over across a 2-year period. So it may be something that has to be done, a request for 1 year, and then at the end of that year, come back to the Lodgers Tax Board again and ask again to continue that. But if you could relate and maybe elaborate on how that billboard, like I said, a picture alone, home of Shad Mayfield alone, I don't think is going to qualify as a tourist related expenditure.
So on the lease itself, we will pay it all up front when we buy it. So it'll be for a 2-year period and pay it all up front when we sign the lease. So it'll all be in this physical year, which is the same way that we've done for the last 10 years with the museum one, or at least for 2-year periods. But I think the way I read the statute and the way I've looked at the ordinance, there, it doesn't say it has to be tied to an event, but I think tying it back to the Welcome Center, tying it back to the activities that we have, even we could put on there about the rodeo, where we could tie it back into those activities. I don't see how it wouldn't be eligible.
And then it is one of the other things is when we're advertising, 25% has to be outside of our community. So how would we meet that requirement?
25% has to be outside of the city of Clovis. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, to an outside community, for a certain
just say
radius outside.
So 2 of the options on those billboards are not in the city limits. They're outside the city limits.
Well, they have to be a certain mileage from the city limits, which I don't have off the top of my head. I apologize.
Well, and in the packet, it specifically says these billboards are both in Clovis.
I didn't write that. Rachel wrote it. It didn't say they're all in Clovis, did it? I don't know. Are they?
I think when we were initially talking about it, we had talked about putting one billboard on the east side of 6084 and one on the west side. I had not been aware of the 25% rule of it having to be outside of Clovis, so I have not looked into how many of the options there were that were outside of that range. But we can definitely.
But part of that application talks about using some of that money to do Facebook and other promotions. Is that correct?
Yes.
So there you could use your 25% coming from that piece of it.
So, if I can interject here. So, we have just worked with Clovis Sign to give us multiple options on billboards. And so, we can look at that list again. And then, if you're favorable on having a couple of billboards, then we are totally open to, we'll design the billboard either in-house or with the design people at Clovis Sign, and we'll make sure that we can get your approval before we roll with it. So we are totally aware of that we need to have it tied to tourism. And so if we put a website up there with all the events coming up for the summer and like our welcome center, we will definitely figure out how to comply before we print a big billboard or 2.
And Chase, this is Thomas. I did not see anything in the application about Facebook or?
Well, it's mentioned $700 would go towards photography design and Facebook promo. So of the total funds requested, it mentions $700 of that cost.
So when you do have a celebrity as the stature of Shad Mayfield, we found out quickly that any photography that's taken of him at the finals, we have to get approved by the PRCA, and there is a pretty hefty cost for the photo. We're putting him on the cover of the 2020 community profile, and we found that straight away, that there is an expense to celebrity image to use.
But the best way to comply with what you're saying is we will find a billboard that's 70 miles outside of Clovis to do one of the billboards, and then we've solved that issue.
But is that still trying to accomplish what Mr. Foldham is in recognizing? I just want to make sure we're trying to honor what the request is, at the same time making sure that we're expending lodgers tax funds appropriately. Mr. Foldham, if there was something that was advertising for events in Clovis that used the same recognition 70 miles away, is that still what you were thinking along those lines?
I was thinking, this is the home of Shad Mayfield. So we get 70 miles away, that doesn't, do the city of Clovis. It does some advertising, but when you come out of Texas into New Mexico on that main 60, 70, 84, that's what, for the benefit of the city and the acknowledgement of a world champion, home of world champion Shad Mayfield. So that's where it would be better acknowledgement for him and us.
Well, you could have one of each. So the one in Clovis could be the one home of. The other one could be the draw, the attraction, the celebrity of it.
Right.
I was going to echo what Gail just said and say, visit Clovis, New Mexico, home of Shad Mayfield. And that way it would be more effective in drawing people in rather than them just already passing through and happening to stumble upon it, but possibly drawing people that might not have otherwise.
And I could make a recommendation, a suggestion, and this board meets every other month, so we'll be meeting again in March. And so, not knowing the timing of when you wanted to get these up, it looked like March of 2021. Is it something to maybe where you could put together a concept, put it on paper, show maybe what the billboards may look like, and then bring it back to this board for consideration, making sure that we are adhering to those principles? That's something you may consider.
I would say, Justin, that we would be totally open to that. The only thing that I will add is that here at our office, and I know that you've got some calls at City too, is that a little bit of pressure from people wanting to make sure that we acknowledge and realize what a big deal this is. And some people are surprised we don't have the billboard up already.
Or could we just, if the lodgers tax board authorizes the money, before we get it printed, we will just run it by Leanne to make sure that, and you so that make sure it complies.
Well, I would say then you're not giving the lodgers tax board the opportunity to actually approve what's being submitted. You're just,
but you're not doing
creating a budget amount and then later approving it at a later date, and they're not approving what is in front of them. I certainly agree that, like I said, that Shad is a big deal. Obviously, he's done great. However, we have the responsibility of making sure that the tax funds are spent in accordance with what they were put in place for. And like I said, the city of Clovis has fully recognized the great accomplishments of Shad, and we'll do what we can to honor him, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we're expending the funds properly. But ultimately, it's up to this board.
But we've never done that for any other billboard, have we? I mean,
typically the billboards that have been put in place have been to promote an event or a venue, and not recognize a person.
This is Freddie here. if you were to put, I know Chad Mayfield from Clovis, New Mexico, and of course, if we were to put in that he would come in, if he's going to be doing rodeos here and stuff like that, that's going to draw people in to come see him here in Clovis. Is the fact that if he was to do rodeos here in Clovis when those all go back on, so that's going to draw people to come see him if he participates in any of those rodeos. And would that kind of help?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Garza here. I think one of the simple things that we can do is just add to the sign Pioneer Days Rodeo and the date, and have home of Mr. Chet Mayfield. I think that's sponsoring the event. At the same time, you're recognizing our homegrown champion. I think that would be the easiest thing to do. How we award it would be the key. But I think once we mention the Pioneer Rodeo on the billboard, that will cover the right thing to do with funding.
Thank you, Commissioner Garza. Yeah, I initially, in reading through the application, I wondered how this would fall under. I mean, again, I think we all support and are excited that Shad is from Clovis, but how this application fit within Lodgers Tax Board funding. And when we look back on how we fund in the past, and one of the examples is coming up is the livability guide. We are reaching out outside of Clovis to bring people in based on events and what we have going on here. What I feel like we need to do with Shad, and same with Commissioner Garza, is we are not the city of Clovis doesn't have something to visit like the canyons or bottomless lakes. We are event based. So if we can put the events that tie back under Shad's attractiveness, that's where we are able to honor him and draw people to Clovis and honor what the Lodgers Tax funds are meant for. So I agree with Mr. Howell in that this is different than other ones, and other events it was part of a marketing program. This was we advertise, and it's part of a billboard is part of their overall marketing budget. This one is 2 billboards, so we've got to make that if we want it to work and work within Lodgers Tax, then we put events that draw people to Clovis in order to stay and be a part of Lodgers Tax, and we honor Shad by putting him on there, and I think that is that's exactly what we want to do with this. So I would like to see that done, but just approving a billboard with his name and face on it, I don't think attracts anybody to Clovis to a welcome center to stay the night. So if we can be event based on the ones that are on these billboards, I think it qualifies under Lodgers Tax.
I like that idea. It sounds real good. You're promoting our 50th Pioneer Days plus Shad, acknowledging him too, and that's a calling card and recognizing that he is from Curry County and that's his home, and he is a world champion. So.
In addition to the PRCA rodeo during Pioneer Days, we also have the High Plains Junior Rodeo Finals and an additional rodeo here where he grew up and became a champion through that association that we've hosted over the years. And so right there you have 3 things, because you have the regular rodeo, the finals for High Plains, and then you've got the PRCA. And so ironically, I don't want to put Kim on the spot, but that's what she had originally on with one of his photos. And so she already had that planned down. So Richard Hadley is on the call as well relating to this proposal, and I didn't know, Richard, if you had anything to add.
Well, I guess I have the question is, what if there's not a rodeo this year to be promoted? I think right now it almost looks impossible for us to put on the Pioneer Days Rodeo again this year with the governor not planning on opening things up. I understand.
Mr. Hadley, I think we're jumping the gun here. I think we are going to have 4th of July fireworks. We're going to have a lot of events coming up. What if we don't fund it and then we still have it? The funding can be granted whether you have the event or not. We're promoting the community. We're promoting an event, whether it's the high school rodeo or the Pioneer Rodeo. It doesn't matter. The funding can be granted, sir. I don't see a problem with that. I think if we grant the funding for fireworks, then and it doesn't happen, at least we're trying. But I think we need to be a little more optimistic about these things, and I really feel like things are fixing to change.
It's good to hear.
I just want to say something. For those of you that don't know, Shad Mayfield has like 4 or 5 billboards up in Dallas already, and this is his hometown. And I think we just need to promote him here, and I think it'll bring people to Clovis.
Yeah, Kim, this is Thomas, and I agree with you. I think, again, we just need to make it work within lodger's tax.
Well, we can always do that. We can put, a website, a URL, something to drive them here to see that we do have the second largest zoo in Clovis, that we do have the Norman Petty Museum, that we do have the Rock and Roll Museum. We have hiking trails, that we have all this stuff to do here, so we can promote Clovis.
And I like where Ernie, by listing, and I know we have hiking trails. I don't know if Shad Mayfield is the best, the face you put on a hiking trail.
True.
But if we can, again, list the number of events that are associated with rodeos, it keeps the billboard relevant. And it keeps people looking at it for the next event that might be coming to Clovis. And I think that makes sense. And I think if you're in the know, Shad, and you can't get better advertising than a world champion. So that makes sense to me. And again, I know we're a board and we're going to talk about it, but that type of advertising and marketing aligns itself with what lodgers tax funds are meant for.
Not to mention, we do have 4 horse sales here. So if we just kind of promote the horse events with our champion, and he's our poster child for how great he does with the horse.
Thomas, I was looking I'm on the City of Carlsbad's lodgers tax minutes, but in September of 19, they funded billboards at the entries of Carlsbad for $30,000. And then they also bought a electronic sign for $216,000. So I don't see that there's a legal reason that it couldn't be done. I was going to show you those minutes if it'll let it.
And
I guess that they're promoting tourism within their community with Lake Carlsbad Recreation.
One of them is that, and one of them is just welcome signs at the entrance of town. The number 7. I don't know. Can you see them? Just right here.
And it's hard to say without knowing more detail.
Yeah, and I can call them tomorrow and find out. But that's what I was just saying. I don't think it's something that's illegal to do.
And I would point out that we do have our own rules that we've set up for the use of our lodgers tax. So what theirs looks like may not compare to ours. Just don't know off the top of my head without researching it.
Thomas, I did have a question as well. If we are promoting events on this billboard, for it to comply with the requirements for the lodger's tax application, if this is going to be up for 2 years, how would we make this qualify and to stay relevant for 2 years for events that have passed? So say we do put on there that this is our, 50th annual. How would we be able to make that valid for that entire time?
Can I chime in for that one? If I just had an idea that I was going to share too, that I think might solve that issue. That if we put, if we come up with a web page or something tied to the chamber's clovisnm.org site where it either lists all of the different upcoming either rodeo type events, horse sale type events, anything that could tie to shad, or come up with, I think I heard someone earlier say, some sort of marketing campaign where that web page on clovisnm.org's homepage has all of those things listed. We could update that accordingly throughout the next couple of years.
So, Michaela, we probably wouldn't put 50th anniversary of Pioneer Days. We would just say Pioneer Days as a whole. And if we list the fair, we wouldn't say 100th anniversary of the fair. We'd just be more generic. And so, we asked for 2 years just because we had met with Clovis Sign Service, and he said the majority of businesses that do billboards do it for 2 years at the minimum. We can do it for 1 year, but then there would be additional costs for production. If you do it 2 years, then it includes the production, and so you're just paying for the monthly lease.
Hey, Ernie, just to clarify, if you sign a 2-year contract, they don't cover the cost to do a new one for the second year, though. You still, if you want to recover within that 2 years, you pay for the recover.
Right. Yeah. So we would leave it after 2 years.
This is Thomas again. I would argue that the increased cost is more valuable than trying to direct somebody to go to, while they're driving past a billboard, to remember the website. I would say you make it relevant to the year it's being advertised for. It's more effective, and that's what the lodger's tax is meant for. I would. That's my point. Again, we have a board that will discuss it, but it's more effective annually than you make it annual.
So I don't know, Rachel, can you tell us what the production cost would be for 1 year?
It says, I think it probably depends on the billboard, but on the couple that I've seen, it's around $840. So that is a good point, that it might just be worth the cost of doing it year by year and eating the $1,000-ish, less than $1,000.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments or concerns? All right. That was a good discussion, and I think it's a good cause, and I think we can solve this one. So thank you for everybody's input. Let's move to the third application. This is also Curry County Chamber of Commerce, the livability guide for 2021. Ernie, are you going to be presenting this one?
Kim will.
Hi, Kim. I should have known better.
Hi, Thomas, and Happy New Year to the board and everyone on board. This is the 2021 Livability New Mexico Guide. Last year, y'all funded a full page, and this year we're asking for a full page, and it's going to be in the Discover New Mexico section. Plus, in addition, this year they've added, you get a medium rectangle digital display ad, and it will link to our website. Also, with the cost, we will get 10 other targeted community pages throughout the state with that digital ad. And we want to inspire visitors, of course, to change their perspective through advertising to showcase Clovis and other tourist attractions here. And with the state being shut down, we want people to start preparing and putting us on the map because we have so much to offer. People might not think we do, but we really do when you get into town, you know, between the studio, the museum, the zoo, but just our hospitality. So we're asking for the $7,315 for it.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks.
The only question I had was, did we move forward after last year's funding? Did it go out? I
Yes,
know
sir.
the pandemic, obviously.
Yes, it went out. It came out, I believe, in February or March of last year.
Anybody else have any questions?
And Kim, can you remind me, was that part of the New Mexico magazine or is that part of the New Mexico True campaign? How's it?
No, it's the New Mexico Livability. And it is, let me see.
So I found a livability.com. Is that it, Kim?
Yes.
Okay.
And
so
it's
that's the website. And
correct.
then a book also?
I'm sorry?
And there's a book also, the guide? Or a physical guide? A physical?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there's a physical guide that's sent out across the United States.
So when you say it's sent out across the United States, is that by request or is it sent out to different states automatically, other chambers, so forth like that?
Yes, and visitor centers, economic. I believe it's, let me look for it here. Oh. No, it's sent out throughout the state, throughout the community pages throughout the state. So not just Clovis, but through the whole state. But then it goes through east to west coast.
Thanks, Kim. Gail, any more clarification? Is that good?
No, I think the only other question I had, if there is a way to know, how many do we know actually get that come to Clovis? Is there any way to know that? Like how many that might drive that get that drive them to Clovis?
Out of all honesty, Gail, I can't answer that.
Okay.
Any other board members?
If we would have had an opportunity to meet in person, we would be able to give you each a copy of the magazine, and we still can. We can have it delivered to you in the morning or whatever.
Thanks, Ernie. Any other board members with any questions?
No questions here, Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. All right. That application, we'll finish on that one and move over to the fourth and final application through the chamber, which is the Community Branding Initiative. Jonathan, I think I saw you there. If you want to start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Lodgers Tax Board. My name is Jonathan Justice. I know most of you in personally, but if I don't, I am one of the executive board members for the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also heading up this community branding initiative. What we are trying to do is help better the brand of Clovis, the perspective and the identity of Clovis with a consistent and congruent brand that we can come behind, a brand including a logo, a slogan, a mission statement, something that businesses all over the Clovis community can come behind and have one united voice. I think now in COVID, it is more crucial than ever before to be able to have their best foot forward when we start opening back up. And so the funding application is for $55,000 for phase 2 and phase 3 of our rebranding. We have already done phase 1, which was our kind of community background research. We had lots of surveys go out. That was funded by $30,000 put up by the CIDC, Chase and the board there. They really wanted to show that they believed in Clovis. They believed in the effect that a new brand would have on Clovis. And so we started that this year, or in 2020 and 2019. Really, we started with the community surveys, and I believe most of you were spoken to on that. And we came up with the fact that some of our airmen, lots of our people that live here may have a negative connotation, or maybe not the most positive connotation of Clovis and living in Clovis and the things to do here. Maybe not as positive as we would like. Not only that, but we don't really have a consistent brand for Clovis. And so we wanted to come together and really make that happen. And so because we have all the market research and analysis, the phase 2 and phase 3 would be what we would be asking for to fund. And that would be creating a brand identity for Clovis and then brand implementation. This company is called Once a Day Marketing. Jim and Marianne have helped the chamber with the museum. And we've done
Did we lose Jonathan?
Want to go check on them? Just a second.
He's frozen time.
He's frozen. I guess he was eating a banana split.
You're frozen. What happened?
Are we back?
You're back.
Okay. Can you see us? I don't know what happened. Right in the middle of my thrilling speech, too.
Yeah, I think you lost us for a little bit. We were just enamored, and we just kept waiting for the punch. But we only lost about 30 seconds of you.
Okay, great. Well, Jim and Mary Ann from Once a Day Marketing are on the call. If you have any specific details that you want to ask that if I don't have the quick answer for, we also emailed everybody some testimonials from Las Lunas, Alamogordo. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for coming on. We emailed you guys some testimonials from Alamogordo and Farmington and Las Lunas. They are 3 out of many communities in New Mexico that have worked with Once a Day Marketing and have shown some serious improvement, not only in the intrinsic value on how the community feels, but also other businesses and other people wanting to stay in the community, wanting to do tourism in the community. And so I would ask the board to consider this proposal, as I feel like this proposal, more than maybe any others, is qualified for lodger's tax, because we're talking about the Clovis brand as a whole, and improving the Clovis brand as a whole improves the perception, and it improves people wanting to come here, people wanting to stay here, move their businesses here, spend their money here, and really do life here. So I would love to answer any questions. Again, we sent you the scope of work as well as a more detailed outline and the testimonials. If you had a chance to look at those, if not, I'd be glad to speak on that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Board members, does anybody have any questions? Again, this is Thomas. I'll start with a couple. Jonathan, you mentioned timing, and I think this could be huge from a coming out of COVID timing perspective. And I do think a community brand is something that would be huge for all aspects of what we do as a community, including lodgers tax. And coming out of COVID on the right foot is, I think, is appealing. The only other thing with timing is getting the feedback from the community and the community members, the best feedback. And this is this is not the most fun meeting I've ever been in. Muting and unmuting a phone, and can we get that most effect? I think that is one of the concerns, is making sure we're all on the same page without being all in one location. And again, that's something that I think we just need to focus on. But I do like the branding aspect. When I think about Clovis and lodgers tax and what we fund, a lot of it is general, like our previous one is, we're throwing some darts and just trying to get people interested in Clovis. But the majority of the things that are really successful are event based. Dragging Maine is huge. Our rodeos are huge. The softball tournaments, are huge because we throw a community behind it, and having that brand stamp on those events is a big, I think it unites us all. I'm trying to gloss through.
Thomas, if I can, a little bit more on that, and I really appreciate what you said. Our hope and prayer is that every single event, every single business, the city, the county, the Chamber of Commerce, my businesses, your businesses, we can all tack on to the heart behind our brand. We can tack on our slogan and our brand image on every single piece of marketing as a whole, and we can really come together with that consistent one voice of, we are Clovis. We're making heartfelt connections with endless horizons. Some of those wording, the verbiage, the feel, we want that to be a consistent base and a consistent voice, so we can have a stronger impact when we are reaching out and throwing those darts, like you say. Instead of Clovis, where's that? It's, oh, Clovis, that's the heartfelt connection, endless horizons place, or that's the connecting hearts and horizons, or whatever slogan that the community comes up with, and really meeting with the 30 and 40 businesses that we already have on this Clovis action team. We have seen so much traction and success. Even meeting in these Zoom meetings, we have been able to facilitate some really good progress with moving forward. And I think that even though it's hampered a little bit, as far as I can't shake your hand and hug your neck, the passion and the heart that these 30 or 40 businesses plus other members of the community has been so strong that we can push through the setbacks and really set our community up well, moving forward to where when things do open up, we open up with a voice that will be heard in other communities surrounding New Mexico.
Thank you for clarifying and expanding on it. With regard to timing, I do the phase 2 versus phase 3. I feel, and the fact that we've moved to every other month having an application review. I mean, again, we're going to talk it through with the board, but being able to, and maybe this is a question, if we were to approve anything in phase 2 and not phase 3, is there any, because it starts in May and we have another largest tax board meeting in March, would that hinder anything with phase 3 progressing? Again, I go back to, is that time frame work with grabbing the best amount of phase 2 the best, can we do it the best way we can, and then be ready for phase 3 by May, even keeping those timelines? Would you have any issue with coming back in March for phase 3 funding?
Thomas, that's a great question. I do believe that the time frame is an estimate based on our traction, the things that we're able to accomplish. There is an estimate of about 3 months there, but all of this is fluid, especially when you throw COVID and Zoom meetings in the mix. I don't think that it would be much of a hindrance to us if we have to break this out. The one thing that I would kind of bring to mind is that we have an opportunity now when there aren't many events on the schedule, when there aren't many other pulls and ties to lodgers tax, to not have to pick A or B or C. I feel like we have a pretty unique opportunity here to fund the entire project. That way, we don't have to pause any momentum that we would have in moving forward and say, okay, well, we ran out of funding. We really need more, but we may need to start some of the processes of phase 3 when we're still finishing up phase 2. So again, it's a very fluid thing. I don't think that it would be a detriment if we had to separate the two, but I do think that it may be the best interest of the board and the best interest of the overall project to go ahead and move forward with the entire funding now.
If I might just pop in for a second, we may want to hear from James on his grand experience associated with some of this, but when we're talking about a branding campaign, consistency and continuous is going to be critical in its effectiveness. It would almost be like we're throwing money at it, and if we stop for a little while or don't continue on, we have thrown that money out. Just a thought. Now, I'm not the advertising professional. I'd love to hear from James, though, on what his experience has shown him.
Jim, if you want to go ahead and tag on to that.
Absolutely. I turned on my camera. I'm not sure if you can see me. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we
can. Can you see and hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, hello, everybody. And I've enjoyed the conversation of all the things that we're hearing today. And to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, is that both are ideal because as JJ was indicating, momentum has already begun. And so that's the biggest thing I think about a branding initiative within the community is the start and stop can sometimes deter people from thinking it's really important. So we certainly could create the identity initially and then following that, begin the integration. But I think you can do both. And I think it's also good during the integration process as people can give their input and see the evolution of design and those kinds of things. And so they believe from the get-go, and rightfully so, that they are contributing to the community brand in a variety of ways. And so I think that is why two going concurrent. In answering your question about COVID, it is a weird world. That word fluid that JJ's been using is a good one. So I think we're all fairly resourceful that we would figure out how to move this forward despite these hindrances and hurdles that we are experiencing right now. Over the last 6 months, Marianne and I have had the opportunity to launch the Outdoor Recreation Business Alliance for the state of New Mexico in a COVID world throughout the state. I've already secured 105 members and a board and so forth. So I think one is able to use Zoom today better than ever, because I think people's mindset at least embraces it, where in the past they were going, what the heck is that? And I think today they at least understand a little bit more. And so I think there's some combination, that word we use today, hybrid model, that would probably work pretty well despite what's going on with COVID at this time.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying and expanding. Last question I had was on your advertising plan and budget. Your third line item, which is probably the last, I think it's the last part of phase 3, is the logo design, or maybe it's current. Actually, it's in phase 2 and 3. The logo design and marketing materials and graphic design firm to be determined. Our local, any of our local graphic design firms is an open process to be a part of. One thing that I regret when I first joined the board is we had a logo created and we chose a firm in LA, and I regret that. It was a local, it was Rock Shop and playing Clovis, and we had somebody outside of Clovis design it. I think that's what it was, and I kicked myself for not saying something at the time. Is that something that any local firms will be able to bid on or be a part of?
Thank you for asking that question, Mr. Chairman. And I would say to that, absolutely, that's definitely our heart. And I believe that Jim would echo, if somebody is here in Clovis and already invested in Clovis and has a business in Clovis, their heart and their desire to make it the best possible is going to be there as well. And we do think that the $10,000 for the logo and brand design is a good amount to hire somebody local to do a very good job. We have a lot of very good graphic designers and marketers that are here in Clovis. And so that is our full intent and plan, to use somebody here in the local area in order to help create this brand.
Thanks, JJ. Board members, anyone else have any questions? Or
Mr. Chairman, I have a real quick question regarding funds. And you do have a breakdown for the graphic design. I noticed within the proposal that was sent out, there's some other costs that are not covered for the media outreach, the hashtag campaign. Do y'all anticipate coming back to this board requesting additional funds for those items, or do you think that those will also be covered out of the $10,000 being allocated for the logo design and marketing materials? And then the next part of my question, and you can break them down, please. My questions, in our conversations that we've had with other communities, there's been the discussions of this has to continue on. Once you're done with year 1, you need to continue year 2, year 3, year 4 to make this effective. How much do you anticipate that costing in the future, and where do you anticipate those funds coming from?
Thank you, Justin, for bringing those up. I think we as business owners all can understand and agree that branding and planning and marketing never ends. I feel like if you do stop funding and you do stop putting your energy and effort into it, then you are rolling down a very slippery slope, and you're going backwards. Because I feel like marketing the community is going to be ever changing, ever evolving, and again, the fluid word comes up. So yes, there is going to be extended amount of cost past the phase 2 and phase 3, but I feel like we're getting the cart before the horse here, because we don't necessarily know what that looks like for our community, what that will entail, how much is going to be organic, how much is going to be donated, and how much is going to really need to push. I mean, we might get the Clovis brand so far and push so far that we might want to hire on a full-time person just to take this brand to the next level, and that would incur more cost. And then at that point, we would need to look at the scope of work, look at what we're actually asking for, and just like we did today, see if that falls under the lodger's tax, or if that falls under local and private businesses funding the brand, or if that falls under any other city, government, state, or even federal funding that we can apply for. So I believe that at that point, we can look further on, but I would say we can't stop, and we won't stop until we continue to change the perspective of the brand. With regard to your first part of your question, and I'm sorry, if you can refresh my memory, Justin, what exactly was the first part there?
Absolutely, no problem, Jonathan. Yeah, so within the proposal itself, it kind of outlines what is not covered within the cost of the proposal. One of those being the graphic design element and the logo creation element to go hire that graphic design artist. There's also some underneath, like the media outreach. It talks about ads not being obviously part of the proposal, hashtag campaign not being a part of the proposal. So where do you anticipate the funds potentially necessary to cover those costs coming from? Are you going to be coming back to this board to potentially ask for those funds as well? Or are they covered underneath that $10,000?
I can speak to the beginning of that answer. That $10,000 came from, we initially reached out to Jim and Marianne to see if they had an idea of how much it typically costs for that brand identity section to create the actual logo itself. And we had found that it was going to be possibly around $2,500 for that. So we tacked on that extra cushion for all of these additional marketing materials that would need to be updated with that new brand. So there is already quite a bit of cushion in that for any number of different marketing materials that Jim and Marianne found in that brand identity as it's being created. I know part of that was their advice on what types of new materials to make with those. But as far as how long that would transition into the next phases, that might be better answered by either Jim or Marianne, or Jonathan. Have you thought on that at all either?
As we go forward and we have that brand, we have that community outreach and the community involvement, again, we have sincere, huge momentum. So the more and more that can be organic and organically shared on Aki Car Wash, on Taco Box, on Diamonds Evermore, that is fewer and fewer funds that we have to push the ball. So I think that we have a very good cushion here of $7,500 for, all the other marketing and advertising situations. But at the same time, when we see, hey, this is really moving, we just need a little bit more. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I'm sure that we could relook at that if for some reason we run out of that 10 grand at that point and say, hey, look at all we've done. This is everything that we have started so far. We might need this much more for this specific event. But again, that's yet to be seen. So I think that this is a great starting point. And I think that later on down the road, if for some reason we need more, we can look at it and discuss that moving forward. But to reiterate that this right here is something that is, the amount is strategic by what Jim and Marianne and Once a Day Marketing has seen in the past, seen other communities pay. And then if we need more funding after that, then we can go from there. But We're not foreseeing anything as of yet because we really just don't know what this is going to turn into. But I do know that it's going to turn into a success.
Thanks, Mr. Howalt. Thanks, JJ. Appreciate it. Any other questions? All right, looks like we are done with the 4 applications before the board. And Mr. Howald or Vicky, do we take a break? Do we keep moving forward?
Mr. Chairman, we're going to keep moving forward.
I figured you were going to say that. All right, so members, let's move to the first application for Smoke on the Water. Proposed marketing cost is $15,000, and then we have the carryover if we do want to move forward on approving. So question 1 is, does this bring in the possibility of outside tourism? I think we can answer yes. If anybody has any comments on that one, let me know, or questions or concerns. We can start now. So chime in, unmute yourselves, speak freely.
The opportunity for it to bring in outside is going to hinge on the advertising itself, but I'm inclined to believe it will, and I certainly want to hear what other people have to say, but my first inclination would be to approve it for the $15,000.
Thank you, Gail.
And Thomas, my thoughts are the same. I think that it would be appropriate for us to approve the full 15,000.
Thanks, Michaela. Freddie, Commissioner.
Yeah, this is Freddie. I agree. I fully fund it.
It's one of those things we need to have something down here in the community so we can get out of this depression that we're living in right now. I think the full amount is well justified.
Thanks, Commissioner. Thanks, Freddie. So fully fund and then take into consideration the carryover that was not used from last year.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for your information, there's about $243,761.50 that's available for the remainder of this fiscal year based off of the budget amount that we had for lodgers tax funds, as well as the actual amounts coming in. And so what we would do in this particular instance, where they did not fully expend their allocation from last year, we would only take that $6,000 difference out, or that $6,900 difference out of that $243,000, just for the board's information.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. All righty. Let's move on to the second application, the Shad Mayfield Welcome Billboards, requesting $18,361. And we had a lot of discussion on this one. I like the idea. I think we just need to make sure it fits within lodgers tax. And I think we can do that by promoting outside of Clovis and making event-based advertising. But board, chime in.
Well, and were we also talking about just doing it for 1 year to start and let them come back for the next year, see how it goes? And are we talking about funding for the full 2 years?
Mr. Howalt, you might chime in on that one. I know that if we ask them to do, we know the board's only going to be relevant for a year if it's event based. So the fund might increase. I guess what we could do is do a 1 year approval, and at a little more than half of this, or and then that could roll over into the second year. But Mr. Howald, can you want to chime in?
Mr. Chairman, and yes, I agree, because I like I said, I think if we tie it to events as was recommended, to keep the billboards fresh, that you would need to look at it for the events for that upcoming year, for those upcoming rodeo events. That's how you could tie it to the lodger's tax. And so while, yes, I do recognize the fact that it may drive that cost up, however, it allows them to keep the events current for that upcoming year. And so I think from an approval standpoint, assuming that it's a little bit more than half the cost, so awarding it, it's I don't know, around $10,000 or so versus $9,150 approximately. So that could account for those additional production costs. But definitely wanted to tie it to those events to make it qualify.
And do we need to have both? And again, I guess we go back to, is one going to be in Clovis and one outside of Clovis? If they're event based, I mean, we do have to get that 25%. Do they have to be the same, or can they be, I mean, they can be different design, but do they need to be event based, correct?
Correct. That is correct. And I would recommend having one outside to meet our 25% requirement.
Can I make a comment here? I think if we have the opportunity to advertise, outside the city area, I think it will be better. I mean, why keep it in the city when we know who Chad is already? You might put a billboard somewhere where travelers might miss it. Maybe one outside Melrose or something like that. I think it would be more easy to justify the expense. Why not have two, or one on each side of the city, instead of one in the city, one outside the city?
I'm just going to make a quick comment, and I don't want to tell anybody where to put them, but I do agree we need outside of the city for it to be a draw and an attraction. But when I'm making my trip back from Arizona and I'm seeing those billboards that are driving me to eastern New Mexico, it makes me want to go. And I think, and consider the traffic that goes back and forth on I-40 and the number of people passing through there, while on this trip may not jaunt down to Clovis to check stuff out, they may want to come back for it. So placement is critical, and there's so much traffic on I-40, and I seriously love those billboards that Eastern New Mexico's put up. So I just want to throw that comment out there.
And Gail, are those the Eastern New Mexico University, the ENMU ones? Is that what you're talking? Yeah, I agree. And then I guess to that point, where, and maybe this goes back to the chamber, is where do we get our biggest bang? The most number of visitors to our rodeos? Do they come from West Texas? Do they come from, central New Mexico, or traveling on I-40? I couldn't answer it, but I think that's in picking the best billboard location. I think we find where the rodeo fans travel.
Everybody travels I-40.
So I'm just going to propose, I think we know we'll cover the cost with probably an $11,000 first year budget. That would allow for the change, or $10,000 if the board has any questions or thoughts. But do you want to do 11, and then anything that is left over could roll into next year's funding of this?
Mr. Chairperson, I would love to make a motion to approve 11,000 for the 1 year.
Thank you, Gail. Commissioner Freddie.
I'll second that.
I don't have a vote, Mr. Chairman.
Michaela, do you have anything?
No, I didn't have anything, and I think I can agree with the 11,000 as well.
Thank you. All right, good to go on the billboards for 11,000, and we just need again event-based and get one of them outside of, qualifying outside of the city to make it qualify. All right, livability guide. Application number 3 from the chamber, the 2021 livability guide. We fully funded last year. It's gone up a little in funding, probably because of minimum wage. But any issues with a fully fund from the board?
Thomas, I don't have any issues with a fully fund.
Thank you, Michaela.
I agree with the fully fund.
Freddie. Find the mute button, Freddie.
There you go, found it. Yes, I agree.
All right. Commissioner, unless you have something to say, we will move forward.
No comment. Move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All righty. So fully fund on the livability guide, and moving on to the community branding initiative. Total requested is 55,000 for the 2 phases. Just glancing through my notes to see if I wrote anything that's relevant for the board. I think the only thing I would want to discuss is if this is do we discuss a full fund, a partial fund, because we have the option to fund in March. Does anybody have any comments on that?
Thomas, this is Gail. So coming from the corporate world for 25 years and then moving into, Clovis community and opening my business and starting everything up, I have a huge appreciation for quality branding. I think it's critical that our community develop a brand that is positive and one we can all adopt and get on board with. The consistency of that branding and that message, I think, is going to be vital to driving people to want to come to our events and things that we have going on here. It would be my recommendation that we approve fully funding it at 55,000.
Sorry, Gail. I missed that. I had an emergency taco call.
Okay. Let me see if I can read it.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. Did everybody else get it? What I said? No? Okay.
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. So Thomas, basically what I was saying, and I'm sorry I'm drudging the rest of you through this again, but Thomas, I come from the corporate world for 25 years before I came to Clovis and opened my own business. And through these years, what I've identified is a true appreciation and understanding of how critical appropriate branding and consistency in that message is. So my recommendation is that we fully fund for the full amount of the 55,000.
Thanks, Gail. Got it this time. Freddie, Michaela, any comments, questions, concerns?
I did have a question. First I want to say I do think that this is really important for the city of Clovis for us to continue to develop and to continue to change the outlook of how people view Clovis. I think it is important, and I think this is great that we're doing this. However, I keep thinking to align with our application guidelines, we have to ask ourselves, is this going to bring people in for an event? And this is not a specific event per se. It's benefiting Clovis, but does this really qualify for? Is this the right place to come looking for these funds? I just want to make sure I'm on the right page here.
No, I think it's a relevant question. I think one of the things we look at is, like the livability guide, is we're working to try to get people in, and if we've got a brand identity, from my perspective, we have something to push out to other, beyond our community, but it also includes ours. Mr. Howalt, do you have any comments on this one?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say that when you look at a typical application, you would see within their application, they want to generate brochures. Well, behind those brochures, there's going to be some marketing within that to come up with that brochure. So I see these as kind of a step one of an overall process. It just happens to be a very large step one. And so, for example, in the future, we would use this brand and the logos and the color schemes that are developed in the livability guide or in the New Mexico True magazine. And so while it's not specific to an event, it's still part of an overall larger vision and application process. So yes, I can see where this would qualify for lodger's tax.
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thanks, Michaela. Freddie?
I kind of agreed with Michaela on the thought of that, on a good question. But other than that, I don't have any other questions, and Mr. Howalt's kind of explained it. So
Thanks, Freddie. Commissioner, do you want to chime in with any thoughts?
The only concern that I have is the cost and when is it going to end? I mean, is it going to stop somewhere? You have.
We lost you, Commissioner. Are you still there? You're showing mute.
That's the only concern I have. Just when is that going to end? And so many parts to it.
And if I can add just a tag comment, there is proper branding never ends. Branding and imaging is a continuous process with modifications if needed to meet the image of the community. But it is something that would be ongoing. To what level might be a question, or how much of it we have to buy out or we can do ourselves. But it is an ongoing thing if you really want to be effective at what you're doing.
And Mr. Chairman, I would add to that. Obviously, the city of Clovis does recognize the importance of marketing. We've hired a marketing coordinator position. And so, we'd still have those talents available to us. We contract with the Chamber of Commerce through our agreements that we have in place for marketing of the city of Clovis with tourism. We also, Kim herself, with the chamber, in which the lodger's tax pays for a special events coordinator. As part of that special events coordinator, they are responsible also for marketing. And so we do recognize the importance of marketing. And so from future expenditures, we have contracts in place with these individuals that are very talented. And so whether or not we need to continue on with a consultant or not is a decision that will have to be made, or if we just utilize the talents that we have in-house to continue on with that.
Thanks for clarifying, Mr. Howalt. I think that, yeah, I agree with you, Gail, and I guess I agree with the concerns of the board that, and I guess that's the board, in the future, we can make that call as to what the board feels like is a yes or no, or an amount that makes sense to continue forward with, but we'll cross that bridge at that point. So at this point, I'm going to recommend to fully fund this for the $55,000, unless any of the members have any concerns. But I would like to hear you yes or no on that.
Thomas, I agree with the fully fund.
Thanks, Michaela.
This is Gail, and I'm a yes.
I already had you written down, Gail.
This is Freddie. Yes.
Thanks, Freddie. All right, Commissioner, we'll bypass you. So we are good on fully funding all 4 applications. At this point, I'm gonna motion to approve all of the recommendations. So all in favor, do you want to do a hands up?
Hey, Thomas,
Yeah, Gail.
just one thing, you said something about approved fully funding, but the one we're only funding the 11,000, right?
Oh, sorry, you're right, Gail.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And with that correction, I've got a thumbs up.
Thank you. Freddie, thumbs up. And hopefully, Vicky, you can see all of this. Are you good, or do we need to say yes?
No, I just need a motion and a second.
Okay. Oh, I didn't get that far, did I? So, all in favor? Is that the motion, right?
I think I started with the motion.
Yes, you did.
And then the motion carried. Or all in favor, and then any opposed? Sorry.
Did we need a second or just
Who
go
was the
straight?
second?
Do we second on these?
Yes.
Sorry, geez.
Thomas, read the notes I gave you.
I thought I was. So, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Freddie. All right. So now do I say motion carries, Vicky?
Yes.
Thank you. Unless there's anything else, do we want to, anyone have anything for the good of the order? Any comments?
It's nice seeing all your faces again.
No, we'll just, Mr. Chairman, just for everybody's reminder, we'll take these to the City Commission at the next commission meeting on the 21st for final approval by the City Commission.
Thanks, Mr. Howell. Nice seeing you too, Gail. And we will adjourn. There being no further business to discuss. Thank you all. Thanks for sticking in with me, Vicky.
Good night. Good night, Thomas.
Good night.
Y'all have a great night.
See you, Freddie.
Good night, everybody.